My name is Jim Elliott, and I'm the founder and president of Diveheart.
What inspired you to create Diveheart?
Well, my father was a veteran, Army veteran with a disability. So really, I kind of grew up around dodging wheelchairs at the VA hospital. So I've been around people with disabilities my whole life. So wasn't foreign to me. I wasn't intimidated by it. And then as I grew, in grade school, I had a friend with cerebral palsy that we were in scouts together, Cub Scouts, and the kids would pick on him because he had a different kind of gait. You know, he walked with a little bit of a limp and stuff. So bullies would pick on him. And so I walked him to school and kind of was his bodyguard in a way. And then when I married a lady with children, two boys, and then we had two girls, and my oldest daughter was born blind, and the other children had different abilities as well. So I got my blind daughter into downhill skiing in the 80s, and that really turned her life around. And I had started actually diving in the 70s when I was in college, and I thought, wow, this is amazing. You know, it's like you could jump off a building and hover in the middle of an intersection. I mean, this is like being a superhero. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world and decided I wanted to teach at some point. But of course, when you have four kids at 24, you don't always get that opportunity right away. So I dove, but I didn't really pursue the instruction side of it. And I grew and I taught and guided these blind skiers for decades, and all the time thinking in the back of my mind, I think we could do this in diving, getting someone out of a wheelchair and getting them to stand up underwater and this experience this weightlessness. And so after, the kids were grown and gone, I was divorced. I said, I'm going to do this. And I left a successful career in the media business and tried it. And the first couple of days after I left, I looked at the ceiling and went, what the heck did I do? Because I don't draw a salary or anything. Um, you know, uh, so it was challenging at first, but I always thought it was going to be a little club type of event, like the blind ski club. It was, our big fundraiser, I think, for the year was a pizza party. So I had no idea that we would be doing programs all over the world. One of our biggest programs is in Malaysia. When COVID hit, we canceled 14 trips, seven out of the country, and 200 pool programs just in the US, not including Malaysia and Borneo and the UK and different places where we had started programs. So the thing for me that I love about this compared to skiing is it takes me the better part of a week. If we go on a week-long ski trip, to get someone acclimated to the skis and then have them initiate turns and then to learn to follow commands down the hill takes really several days before I can even get them really on a green and doing something where I'm actually calling out turns behind them and guiding them effectively. In 30 minutes, if you're in a wheelchair and you've never been in the water before, I can get you standing up. And the cool thing is when guys stand up, anybody stands up underwater for the first time out of their wheelchair and looks down and goes, oh my God, I'm standing up. Now, it might be the first time since their injury, or it might be the first time in their life. If they were born with cerebral palsy or something like that, this may be the first time they're out of a wheelchair, outside of being transferred to a bed or to somewhere else. So that really, it's a quick fix. It's a quick kind of like high for me to see this happen. And I smile all the time and I laugh all the time. And to see them smile then and go, oh my God, and see their eyes is just the payback for me. I don't need to get a salary or anything like that. This is what it's all about for me.
What is it about water that is so freeing?
Well, water is like, I mean, the atmosphere we're in right now, we're in one atmosphere talking to each other, and you feel the wind, right? And the water is very similar. It's just 800 times denser, and you feel the current the way you feel the wind. Only it moves much slower, obviously, and its ability to when we jump in the water, our body displaces so much water. So if I'm 100 pounds and I displace 100 pounds, I should be neutrally buoyant pretty much. So a combination of putting weight on to initially descend underwater and having a vest that we can put air in, because as we go down, the pressure increases, but our body is mostly water, so we don't feel it. We feel it in our air spaces, which is why we have to like block our nose and blow and pop our ears, because if you go underwater and you don't do that, you won't equalize your airspace and you'll feel pressure. If you've ever swam to the bottom of a swimming pool and felt that pressure, some people go, oh, I can't dive. When I go underwater, I feel this terrible pressure and it hurts. I go, well, everyone does. If you don't learn to equalize, then that's going to happen to anybody. So you have to equalize your mask. So you blow out through your nose and it pushes the mask away from your face. Otherwise, the mask, as you go deeper, it pushes against your face and you get like a ring around your face. And you can tell people that aren't blowing out through their nose and equalizing, because they come up out of the pool and they go and they've got this ring around their face. It's like, well, you need to blow out through here. So that's why we teach people why you go through training first. But it really is this ability to achieve neutral buoyancy. We call it your astronaut moment. Okay, so you're in inner space, not outer space. But the truth is, astronauts have to work in a pool with divers before they can go and work on the space station or go into outer space. They have to learn to manage zero gravity and understand the dynamics of not being, having gravity weigh you down, being able to move around. And that's why at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, they have the replica of the space station in 40 feet of water in a huge tank. And that's where the astronauts work with divers. So if you went there, you'd see divers in the water staged, as safeties, basically, watching the astronauts work on the space station and, jump around in zero gravity with their spacesuits on and stuff like that.
So with skiing and diving, those two things aren't easy to do. But what have you seen with people of all abilities, overcome those challenges, and how does that help their confidence level?
Well, I always felt that it builds confidence, independence, and self-esteem. When you can do something that a lot of people that don't have disabilities, we call them tabbies. We call people without disabilities, we call them temporarily able-bodied individuals. Because when you think about it, something eventually is going to take you down. So you are temporarily able-bodied. So if you're a tabby, a lot of times you're more challenged doing diving than the person with the disability. If you think about what a person with a disability has to do every day, getting out of bed is a major effort sometimes, or going to the bathroom, or transferring into a car from their wheelchair. So they deal with challenges every day that we completely take for granted. We move in and out of a building, we move in and out of a vehicle, up and down the street, without even really thinking about what it takes to do that if you have a disability. So they, a lot of times mentally, are better prepared to deal with zero gravity and underwater than people who are tabbies. And it's really funny. In my perspective, it's funny when people first put their face in the water, and we just have them do this at the surface with their mask on and their regulator in their mouth, and they take that first breath in. And sometimes they'll go, I can't do this. I can't do this. I laugh back and go, look at your brain is saying, what are you doing, stupid? It's like you're not supposed to breathe underwater.
Right.
Duh. And so it just takes a moment to get past that. And when you use humor and, you just take your time and have a lot of patience and stuff with someone, they eventually go, oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. Okay. I can do this, and then once they do it, it's like, wow, this is so cool. And then we take video and photos of them, and then they share that with their friends and on social media. And now they're rock stars because they can dive, and a lot of their tabby friends can't.
So for you personally, even before Diveheart, what did you learn from your father and your daughter?
Um, I guess because I was so young around people with disabilities, I never really thought about it. It just kind of came naturally. And I was like, for example, if you rolled up to me in a wheelchair, my first instinct, if I wanted to talk to you, is not to look down and talk to you, it's to kneel, so I can look at you eye to eye. Um, I think understanding, respect, dignity, things like that. Give them the dignity they deserve, and then help them explore the possibilities in their life. Really, our motto is imagine the possibilities. It's on the back of all of our Diveheart shirts. And that's really where it's at. It's like I kneel in front of a new person and I look at them in the eye and we talk about their abilities, not their disabilities. And then we take what abilities they have and we modify what we have to do in the water to give them a wonderful experience underwater. So that's kind of how we do it, is imagine the possibilities. So it's helped me do that with everyone. And I'm always learning. We had an experience where 2019, before COVID hit, we came up on a trip in Cozumel, Mexico, and we love Cozumel, Mexico because it's cheaper than Florida, and
Oh,
also
wow.
the current moves you through the water. And what we can do is if I get you neutrally buoyant, and now you're hovering, and you use your breath to breathe in, you go up a little bit. When you exhale, you go down a little bit, and you learn how to control your breath. And I swim backwards, and you can follow me just using what abilities you have. If you have no arms and no legs, you can still control your buoyancy in the water column and just breathing. And then the current carries you. And we're just like safeties around you all the time. So that's kind of the beauty of that. And um, in 2019, I was beginning to tell you the story where we're in Cozumel and we come up and there's 4 teams with quadriplegics, and we call them adaptive divers. Each of them had quadriplegia and each of them had 3 people on their team. So 4 teams of 4 people basically came up, and this boat pulls over and says, "Come on, get on our boat." And we go, "Well, you're not our dive operator." And they go, "No, your diver operator, that boat broke down and it's on the other end of the island." And we're like going, "Oh my God." So now we have 4 quadriplegics with no wheelchairs, and they have cushions that are like $700 that are like that thick that go on their chairs so they don't get sores on their bottom, to scuba dive. And so we don't have pads, we don't have wheelchairs, we don't have medication, we don't have catheters. And one thing you learn underwater is that you have to pee a lot of
Yeah.
times. If you're diving in a wetsuit, we kind of joke. We go, there's 2 kinds of wetsuit divers: those that pee in their wetsuit and those that lie about it. So basically, you got to pee. So when they get out of the water, now they got to pee, and there's no catheters. Well, that noxious. What happens is they can't feel their feet. So if they stub their toe or break their toe, they couldn't feel that. But what'll happen is the pain, the stimulus still goes up their spinal cord to their brain. But because their spinal cord is injured, when it gets to the brain, it's confused, the signal. So it's a noxious stimulus that causes their blood pressure to rise a lot of times, and they could actually get a stroke. It's called autonomic dysreflexia. So we have 4 quads that come up, and each of them could get autonomic dysreflexia if they don't get catheters pretty quick. So on the fly, I'm rearranging the teams to try and get people on the boat who know how to take them out of the water safely. So we're sending people up on the boat, dive masters and instructors, and then they don't have their pads. So I'm saying, get those orange life vests and lay those out. So I put towels on them or something like that, so we can set them on, and we'll sit next to them with that. And I held a gentleman who was a quadriplegic and on my lap. So he was on my legs and I'm holding him. We both have our wetsuits on. So he was cushioned. And I'm telling the dive master, get a fast boat to our boat and get those chairs or at least the medication. So actually that worked out. And no one had a stroke or anything, thank God. But they got back in time. Once they calved, then we could take our time transferring them back to the other boat. So it was, but that was 2019. And I've been diving since 1976, and I've been teaching since 97. So I'm still learning all the time. So that the next summer, what we did is we took catheters and we put them in our wetsuit. We tucked them in our wetsuit and we put them in our BC pocket, our vest. And then we put them in like a waterproof container, and we took them to 100 feet to see if they would, the integrity of the thing that they were in, that sealed container they're in, if it would degrade or anything like that. And in all 3 cases, the catheter was still in great shape. no seawater got into the little container it was in, and that was good news. So now what we do is we put the catheter in the BC pocket of the buoyancy compensator pocket of the vest that the adaptive diver is wearing, because they're the ones that need it. So no matter what happens to the three other people in that team, if somebody has to go to the surface, or if we get him up onto the boat or her up onto the boat and they need to cath, they will have their catheter with them. So it's we like to say good divers are always learning. So I definitely went to school on that one.
Wow. And that with, adapting to every situation, with your programs, do you always adapt them when you learn something new?
Yeah, absolutely. It depends. We look at it, we get to a dive spot, whether it's a pool or an open water environment. And the first thing you have to do is you have to evaluate its accessibility. So if you're working with people with wheelchairs, you have to look at the egress and how they enter the pool and how they get out of the pool and as safely as possible. Safety is like always our number one thing that we're thinking about. So the environment is number one, and then their abilities, to adapt. We get in some pools that don't have like a 4-foot area where you can stand up and hold on to the diver and be, chest level in water. But we'll have, like, maybe we're in 7 feet of water. We're in a pool that's that deep. It's a lap pool or something. So we have to think about how we're going to stay at the surface and communicate and prepare everything before we go underwater. Because before you go underwater, you have to do a pre-dive safety check. You have to make sure all the gear is working right. You do a lot of that on the deck, but then when you get in the water, you have to double check everything again. It's like flying a plane. Pilots have checklists and divers have checklists too. In fact, diving came from aviation, from flying.
How does it feel personally when you see someone smile or enjoy diving for the first time?
I'll never forget the first few years I was doing this, and we'd be in open water and I would just like shake my head and look up and go, thank you, because you see this happening, you go, this is your fault. You go, you started this. And it's really very moving at times, even today still, to be able to, to think about that. And usually I'm just working so hard, I don't even realize kind of what's going on. I just work. And I'm always looking at the next opportunity and adventure and trip. And like right now, we're planning a trip to with the doctors and researchers from Mayo Clinic. They came up to us and said, would you present at a conference? And we said, Mayo Clinic? Of course, yeah, we'd love to talk about the benefits of adaptive scuba. And we said, where's the conference? And they said, Cozumel, Mexico. So like, cool. We're bringing the filmmaker. We have a documentary that came out in May called Adapting to Dive, and it has won 9 International Film Festival awards since May, since it premiered.
Oh, wow.
And,
That's
yeah,
amazing.
I know. And we've had that. We had the film. If you get a chance to see it, see it. It's on Amazon and Tubi TV, and it's on like 6 or 7 streaming services. And the filmmaker gets us so much in his head and in his heart that I invited him on 3 other trips. So he is now capturing for us amazing stories by individuals and putting them on we put them on our YouTube playlist when they're ready, and then we share them on social media. But if you were to go to the Diveheart YouTube YouTube channel and click on playlist, you get all of our military stories, all of our medical stories, all of our fun stories, all of our symposiums. We've done 11 adaptive scuba symposiums with researchers and doctors from university medical centers all over the world, actually, and there are documentaries and our major features, and you'll be able to get all those outside of this new one. The new one is on Amazon, so we can't yet put it on our YouTube channel. And then there's a TV show called Random Acts. It's on the BYU, Brigham Young University Network, and it's this particular show, Random Acts, is the most popular TV show on the network, and we were featured as the premiere story to open their season. So they start their season in January, and they showed our our particular episode in October to promote the whole series. So that was an amazing story where we took an individual who's a motivational speaker, national motivational speaker, who has his own nonprofit where he sends wheelchairs all over the world. And he's a wheelchair user, and has quadriplegia from a spinal cord injury. And they said, can you take him on a shark dive in the Gulf of Mexico? And I said, no. I said, I'll take him in the Bahamas, but not the Gulf of Mexico. The Gulf of Mexico, you can't see your hand probably further than your face. I said, a bull shark will eat your face before you have a chance to see him coming at you. I said, let me call an instructor who I trained years ago in Freeport, Bahamas, and see if she's the #1 shark professional in the world. Her name is Christina Zanato, and she called her. I said, I'll handle the individual has quadriplegia if you'll handle the sharks. And she said, absolutely. So we went down for 3 days and arrived on a Wednesday. Thursday got him in a 14-foot pool, and he did miraculously. And then we took him on a 40-foot shark dive, and they had 3 cameras on the boat and 2 cameras, underwater where the sharks were. And it was just an amazing, amazing story. So that's another one we can't put on the YouTube channel, but that's a great place to see what we do. And so this filmmaker's coming with us on the Mayo Clinic trip. And then we have another amazing story that we're looking forward to. And that's there's a statue in Pennant Park in Key Largo underwater. It's called the Christ of the Abyss. And it's Christ, 9-foot bronze Christ statue looking up at the skies. And the gentleman who brought that statue here in the 60s is one of my students, believe it or not. I started teaching him at a VA hospital with a bunch of other blind veterans, and he was almost 80 years old. And I started talking about diving. He goes, oh, I've been diving since the 50s. I go, really? I said, why are you almost 80 years old and I'm certifying you now? He goes, well, we didn't need certifications back then. I go, well, that's true. It was bootleg diving back in the day. So he bootleg dived for a long time. And now he's almost 80 years old, and I'm certifying him to dive. Right. So then he starts telling a crazy story about how he brought the Christ statue over from Italy. I started laughing. I go, yeah, right. And he starts bringing in pictures, and he brings in a stack of photos of him in front of a wooden crate with the Christ statue in it at Navy Pier in Chicago, and then tells him this crazy story how he went to Italy. He was on a wine trip, met Cressy, a guy who makes dive gear, and then Cressy says, I have 3 statues. 2 are staying in Italy. I'm giving one to the U.S. Gabriel is this guy's name. He goes, how are you going to get it to the States? He goes, I'm not. You are. So Gabriel went to his father, they ran an Italian restaurant, and Gabriel's dad went to a guy who owned an Italian shipping line, and they got it from Italy to Navy Pier in Chicago for free on the shipping line. And then it stayed in a National Guard armory at O'Hare Airport because Gabriel was in the Army, so he knew a bunch of military guys, and they got it in this military area, and it sat there. But it was during the Cuban Missile Crisis in the early 60s. And so one day at 9 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning, some guys called and said, hey, we can get the Christ statue on a plane and get it to Key West, because they had to go down to the Keys. So he went there at 2 o'clock in the morning, grabbed a bunch of guys, and they got it on the plane, got it down to the Keys. And then it sat in a warehouse for years until they were able to find the perfect spot for the Christ statue to be stationed on this huge foundation, because storms come and you got to make sure it doesn't move at all.
Right.
So it was crazy. So Gabriel gets very busy with his Italian restaurant and stuff, and he forgets about the Christ statue. He brought it over here, it got down to Florida. He's kind of done with it. So in 2013, fast forward to 2013, and I'm driving him home from a fundraiser. He comes to our fundraisers, and he's really funny. He makes balloon animals. He's a hit. Everybody loves him, right? There's the blind guy making balloon animals, and he's a Korean War vet too. So at this point he's in his early 80s. And he goes, I'm going to dive the Christ statue. I go, really? I go, well, who are you diving with? He goes, well, my buddy Vinny has one leg, and he's also a Korean War vet. And my buddy Louie, who's also going blind, is going to go with me. And I go, so 3 guys in their 80s are going to go with disabilities, are going to go down to dive the Christ statue. I go, who's your vendor? Who's taking you out? And he goes, oh, well, Vinny has a fishing boat, like a 25-foot fishing boat. I go, really? So your three guys are going to go out to 8 miles out in the water with disabilities in their 80s, and they're going to die, basically. So I called my vendor, the number one vendor in Key Largo, a Rainbow Reef, and he cleared on a Saturday 8 paid spots to get Gabriel and the team on the boat. And then we had 20 people in a chase boat follow us. And we dove the Christ statue for the first time with Gabriel. And it made the cover of Miami Herald, all sorts of media he was able to get from it. So it was a really cool experience. But he's now 90. And we're going to bring him down again to Key Largo to do a last dive with Christ. And we're bringing David Marsh along, the filmmaker, and going to capture that and make a real complete documentary to tell the whole story about how it got down to Key Largo. And it's the most viewed underwater object in the world. It's really kind of crazy. So that's what I look forward to is those moments, the next story. And its stories stick. And I believe that if we can keep telling these powerful stories of hope and healing, that it'll touch people's lives in a way where, they'll go, my day's not so bad.
Right.
Here's a guy with who's blind, or here's someone with no arms and no legs. It's doing this incredible stuff. So I can take on this task in my life. And that's really our goal, is to create a ripple effect so that people are touched by this and they can do things in their lives that they normally wouldn't do. Maybe they never get in the water or try diving, but they'll look at their life with a different perspective, and have hope and imagine the possibilities, right? So that's kind of the goal, is to have them, our people, our adaptive divers, change lives and influence, people around them, and have that ripple through society.
I mean, that Christ statue is so famous. That is a wild story.
It the most viewed object in the world underwater. Yeah.
What motivates you?
Well, I have little rituals I go through, habits in the morning. And even when I don't want to get up in the morning, I just sometimes just go, you know what? 90% of success is showing up. So get your butt out of bed and just show up. And I do. And consequently, something happens inadvertently every day. Little thing. It's a phone call. Thank you so much for this. Or it's something that I see that makes me realize why I do what I do every day. And I don't plan on retiring. I plan on dying with a tank on my back, basically. But I also have learned to really I focus so much on the positive stuff. I don't, and abilities, when I approach somebody with a disability, seeing their abilities and not focusing at all on the negative side, it helps you communicate that to people that might be struggling with depression. Veterans, a lot of times, or people who have suffered traumatic injuries, sometimes are angry, sometimes depressed. And I think my job partially is to help them kind of look at life a little bit differently, imagine the possibilities, and then go forward in a more of a positive manner. But for me, it's just getting up in the morning and showing up, because I know when I show up, something positive will happen during the day, and that will inspire me to go on and do more. And it works really every day. I mean, days that I really don't want, maybe I'm sick kind of, and I really don't want to get out of bed. I mean, very rarely does something keep me down. I go forward regardless of kind of how I feel, and initially in the day, and then I take the day on, and then something inspires me, and I go, wow. I go, thank you. I go, this never would have happened if I wouldn't have got out of bed and gone and did what. And sometimes it's just plowing through the mundane stuff. It's maybe I have to move 50 scuba tanks, and I don't feel like it. And I just kind of go, take one at a time, and just kind of go and do my business. And it's part of the process, really. Like I know that there's a really successful coach in Alabama, and he's probably the most winningest coach in college football. And part of his theory is finish the process, finish the play, finish the workout, finish the block, just finish and get through it. And so I think about the process a lot. when I'm doing the drudgery stuff, that I don't necessarily want to do, and say, this little step that you're doing is going to move on to the next step. It's always that groundbreaking, wow kind of stuff. It's you gotta paint the wall of the new place you're in, or you gotta move this, or you gotta schlep that, or it's not always fun. But when you look at it as part of the process, then you kind of put it in perspective that this is going to help prepare for the next thing that we do, or this is one less thing that a volunteer has to do, because I work 7 days a week pretty much, for no salary. And people say, Jim, your off button is broken. Pretty much. I just don't know how to stop. And it's really kind of cool. I was like that when I was in the media business too. I was with the Tribune, Chicago Tribune, WGN Radio, and then I helped set up a TV station for them in Chicago. And I was always on, when I was in the media business. Now I had family, so I did get to go home and take care of them and stuff. Yeah. Any moment that I was with the friends or able to talk about what I did, I was talking about WGN or the Tribune or whatever. So I just do that now with Diveheart. It's just kind of like I'm always, and I've learned to kind of dial back the excitement, enthusiasm, and always selling the concept. A lot of times now, I'll let people discover it on their own, because now we have hundreds and hundreds of stories on YouTube and in our media kit and our webpage. We did during COVID, and it's wonderful now. And I'm able to send them to places where they can watch stories. Like a new volunteer will come in, and the first thing I do is I probably send them a half a dozen links to documentaries or news stories or videos. And that's how they become oriented to what we do. So after they go through our media kit, or after they watch Adapting to Dive, they come back to me and go, oh my God, what you do, what Diveheart does is amazing. And that saves me a whole lot of time doing this, just talking, right? So I get to save time. I get them oriented to what's going on. I ask them to share those stories. So now they kind of become ambassadors, and that is really advantageous as well.